entrepreneur has to be somebody who will not accept failure or defeat, right? Will do anything they can, just never giving up.
Troy Bondi, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I am so excited to learn about how you raised millions of dollars for pasta sauce. Give me the story. What is the origin of Sauz?
Yeah. Well, my co-founder and I went to USC together. We were sophomores at USC when COVID broke out. And I was interning at a merchant bank, lower middle market tech media telecom. He was at a real estate fund. We were sent home, both from Pasadena. And, we were kind of like, we wanted to start something. We had kind of this entrepreneurial drive. I don't know why. I think probably by virtue of not having much else to do. And ended up sourcing from Shenzhen, China, a hand sanitizer dispenser with a built-in infrared thermometer. So you could take your temperature, it would display it, and you could sanitize your hands at the same time. And, we sent a cold email to a local school district. That night, we had a signed PO for like $24,000. We demoed the product with them. They loved it. And from there, we kind of had a business. I mean, we would cold email as many school districts as we could. And we'd sleep in this office. I'd sleep on the couch, my co-founder on the floor. And there was a single stovetop burner in the office. We'd cook pasta like 4 or 5 nights a week because it was quick and cheap and easy. And we'd go to like local grocery, Whole Foods, Sprouts, Ralph's, Target. And after like 2 weeks of cooking tomato sauce, we were tired of it. It was old Italian, tan label, cursive writing, visually nothing appealing. And by virtue of that, we defer to flavor. And on the flavor side, marinara, arrabbiata, tomato, basil, roasted garlic, like totally commoditized, right? So, we knew the COVID-based business wasn't going to last. We got really lucky. We scaled it almost to 7 figures in like 90 days. It went straight up and it came straight back down. But, we knew we had to do something else. Like either I was going back to banking or we were taking another shot and hoping that it would work, right? And so somehow we felt like tomato sauce was the lowest hanging fruit. There was clear opportunity on brand to appeal to a younger generation of consumers. And on product, it was wide open. Like we could do anything, right?
Yeah, and what is that anything? What makes sauces unique?
Yeah, it's really flavor innovation. I think we are like more so than anything an innovation business. Like we are looking to push the boundaries of what consumers know and love in our category. And for so long, they've only known marinara and tomato basil and roasted garlic, right? We feel like the core problem that we are solving is that consumers today expect experience in grocery. And when they enter our category, the aisle that sells tomato sauce, they don't expect anything, right? They've been totally trained to buy a commodity. And to us, like we have this incredible opportunity to decommoditize a commoditized category with flavor.
Yeah, what are those flavors I might find in the aisle now?
Yeah, we launched with a hot honey marinara and a summer lemon marinara. We now have 11 flavors. We've got a miso-garlic, a cracked pepper parmesan, a wild rosemary marinara. We've got 2 pestos, 3 Alfredos now. So think like really flavor trends that we've identified cross-category that are familiar enough that we don't necessarily have to go educate consumers on, that we can bring to ours. Hot honey was everywhere, right? It was on pizzas. It was at every restaurant. Mike's Hot Honey was killing it in retail. And so we try to identify trends that, we're not reinventing the category in some certain way. Like we don't want to have to go educate the consumer about the flavor we're adding to a product they know and love. But we're really pulling trends, bringing them to ours, and then ideally being able to communicate some level of familiarity, right?
That sounds delicious. I myself love a spicy pasta.
Yeah.
I have to ask, do you have Italian roots?
I don't. My co-founder does. His last name's Alfieri.
Okay,
so he's
cool.
like as Italian as it gets. I don't though. So
Yeah.
I get that question always. I'm like, no, I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm Danish and I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'm from.
Yeah. How do the Italians feel about this pasta sauce innovation?
Yeah.
You think they'd be on board?
No, it's funny. We actually contracted early. We tried to contract a famous chef in LA, and you probably know his name if I told you. And we sat down with him and we told him what we wanted to do. And he said, I like tomato sauce. I like the category. I like the opportunity, but what do you want to do different? And we told him we want to innovate on flavor. We want to put hot honey and lemon in a marinara. And he said, you put hot honey? And he was so mad. Like he was like viscerally angry at us. And he said, no way, it'll never work, right? And so we ended up having to kind of innovate on flavor ourselves. And we wanted somebody with a deep culinary background in Italian foods to do it. But it was like the antithesis of anything he'd ever been raised to cook or he'd ever cooked, right? So I think there's a little bit of tension in the beginning, but I guess the solution there is when you try it, he's tried it now and we still keep in touch with him. He loves it, right? Yeah. He's a big fan now, but there's definitely, it's unapologetically Californian. Its roots are not Italian.
Yeah. I mean, the famous chef might have said no initially, but investors said yes. Yeah. You have $22 million. That's a lot of money. Yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think it's been a long time coming, but we launched in Erewhon in Southern California in 10 stores, the place to see and be seen. It's like the influencer hotspot. And pretty quickly, we started with 2 single facings in the top right corner, like you could barely see us. And after a couple of months, we were the top selling tomato sauce brand with like the whole shelf at Erewhon, right? I think at that point, we'd proven that we could sell product in LA, New York, Miami, and Chicago. But the real test in the beginning in fundraising, there was a ton of investor pushback on whether the product could scale outside of the 2 coasts, right? And I think what we've done and what really influenced us to think more so about everybody in between LA and New York is that when we think about innovation, we're actually curating innovation for the palate of the consumer shopping at Target in Toledo, right? Like I'm looking at Wingstop, I'm looking at Buffalo Wild Wings, I'm looking at the Chick-fil-A sauce menu, and I'm trying to innovate in a way that actually will appeal more so to middle America, to conventional and mass grocery than it will, Whole Foods and Sprouts. And so I think the beautiful thing there is that we are a better for you, great tasting, healthy product that can win, and we've proven can win at Erewhon and in natural. But we've been able to build this brand that, in comparison to most in the category, has huge TAM implications. So like innovation for me is actually an opportunity to expand TAM, and whereas in most other categories it kind of shrinks TAM. I think venture has bought into that for sure. And we've also built a product platform unlike anybody else in the category, right? Everybody in our set is playing in Italian foods. We're a sauce brand, we think about it often. We won't do it in the near term, but we could go launch a barbecue sauce tomorrow and it would kind of fit the brand ethos. We could do a miso-garlic barbecue and consumers would love it. And so I think building an incredible data story, being able to curate data that is best in class, not only in LA, in the bougiest grocery store in the world, but also in middle America at Target, and kind of rewriting the playbook of fundamentally shifting consumer expectations in the category and being able to be incremental in the sense that we're not pulling dollars from the others. We're actually bringing new dollars into the set. And that's where, real money can be made.
Yeah. So you landed Chef Space before you got funding?
Yeah, we self-funded with the previous business. We put everything on the line, and we really did kind of risk every dime we had to get shelf space at Erewhon. So it was funny, even like it's stereotypical of young founders, but the first product run we had, we printed the labels. We were running like 20,000 jars of product, a big production run because we had to meet minimums. And product came off the line. We saw it in store for the first time, and every label was torn up on the front, right? And so we called our manufacturer. We said, what happened? He said, what do you mean? They came off the line perfectly. I put them in the cardboard boxes. We sent them out, and there they were. The label manufacturer had forgotten to varnish the front of every label. So every time they hit the cardboard boxes, they would just be destroyed, right? And so it was funny. We lost probably half of the cash that my co-founder and I had contributed off the bat because we had to scrap the first production run. But we self-funded until probably our first, we took a little bit of venture before we landed at Erewhon from Palm Tree Crew, which is Kygo's venture arm.
Interesting.
And they were early. I mean, they took a big bet on us, right? We had product and that was really it. But after that production run that had kind of scrapped a bit of our dollars, we knew we had to go out and raise some money.
Yeah, but if you were able to, bootstrap your way into Erewhon, why do you need 22 million? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, I think the implications of what we're doing are far greater than tomato sauce alone.
Okay.
And that's one point. Innovation is not cheap. And the other is that we want to do all that we can to drive trial. Like, we are so confident that we've built this flywheel of reacquisition by virtue of having incredible product, experiential product. We joke that, like, whether a consumer tries hot honey marinara and loves it or hates it, they're never going to forget it.
Yeah.
Right? You go buy a basic marinara and you compare it to another on shelf, they're forgettable in many ways, right? And there's a lot of great brands that we compete with, but it's difficult to differentiate in that way. For us, like, we are as different as anyone could ever be. And so, a lot of it will be costly innovation, some SKU expansion, door count and distribution growth. And then I think you'll see more celebrity integrations and a lot of influencer, a lot of marketing spend that we otherwise, now we have the firepower to really market the brand. What we've built today up until now is almost entirely organic, right? So we'll see. It's exciting.
You talked about your entrepreneurial drive earlier. Do you feel like Sauz has itched it?
I think so, but in a strange sense, like, it's funny. I go to bed at night, like, worrying about so much of what we're doing, and I wake up in the morning so glad to be doing what I'm doing, right? It almost keeps me up at night, but it wakes me up. I think there's these, I feel like we plateau in many ways. Like, looking back, if you told me 2 years ago we'd be where we are today, I'd have been shocked. I mean, it was everything we'd ever dreamed of. And I don't think we smell the roses as much anymore, right? I mean, there's so much more to do. And I feel like we're just getting started. So I think it's actually, I don't think it's itched it really at all. Yeah. I think there's, even though I love what I'm doing, I think there's so much more to do.
Yeah. What do you think gave you the entrepreneurial drive in the first place? Like, what were you doing before starting businesses? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, I was a sophomore at USC. I was interning at a merchant bank. I wanted to go. My dream was to be a banker in tech, media, telecom, in either San Fran or New York. And then after starting the first, effectively the drop shipping business during COVID, we were just bit by the entrepreneurial bug. I mean, we'd seen, because I had just finished an internship at a merchant bank where I was up until 1, 2 a.m. building models. I'd have my managing director call me telling me to build a sim by 9 a.m. It was hours on hours on hours of work that, like, my favorite part of being in the banking world at the time was meeting the founders. We worked on one brand. We were selling a business that was a predictive weather systems business. So it was like radar technology to predict the weather that was then licensed out to news stations and foreign militaries and foreign governments. And, like, meeting this founder, I mean, he was crazy. We all thought he was crazy on the banking team, but we ended up selling his business for, just ungodly sums of money that he felt we could get and we never thought we would get. And it happened, right? And so I think I did not love the part of banking that had me feeling like I wasn't creating value, that I was just almost pushing paper. But I loved seeing and meeting the founders who had created all of the value, right? Yeah. And so I think that's what led us into starting that first business. And then after we'd had a piece of it and we realized, like, we are capable, like, we can build something that can fundamentally change a category or an industry, right? I don't know, you could never go back,
Yeah. It's one thing, though, to have a great idea, but it's another to run a business and be a CEO. How's that treated you?
Yeah. I think there's been a steep learning curve, right? Especially with all the funding that comes in, the growth. I mean, we had a board meeting a few months ago, we were 14.5x year over year, right? It's a ton of growth. First 2 quarters of last year to the first 2 quarters of this year. And then managing a team, we've gone from a team of 3 a year ago to a team of 11 today. There's a lot to learn. We know what we don't know, and there's so much that we still don't know. I think surrounding ourselves with investors and advisors and team members, my VP of sales knows a lot more about sales and consumer goods than I do, right?
Yeah.
And so I learned from so many on my own team. But I think it's up to us to be the nucleus that keeps everything moving, and everything functioning in a way that drives the business forward. So it's definitely been a learning curve.
Is there one business lesson, a key lesson, whether that's from your investors or from your advisory board or just from the earlier business you started, that you've kept with you, that you hold close?
Yeah, I mean, it might sound cliche, but there have been so many times where our back has been against the wall and we thought it was all over and we were done, right? And I think having this insatiable will to win is what will get you there. Just never giving up. An entrepreneur has to be somebody who will not accept failure or defeat, right? Will do anything they can. Will create something to avoid them from seeing failure. I think being willing to ask questions, knowing again where your weaknesses are, it's so important as a founder. But being able to, you have to have a propensity to absorb risk, and to be, we get punched in the face every day. You have to punch back. You've got to be willing to punch back.
Yeah, I love that advice. Long term, what's the goal with Sauz? In the food and beverage space, we see a lot of acquisitions, a lot of sales. Kavu, which is one of your investors and is a huge investor in this space, backing, Vital Proteins, Poppy, Oatly. We see a lot. Poppy, for example, just sold for $1.9 billion to PepsiCo. So
it's amazing.
Is that the goal at the end of the day, to sell Sauz, or what do you imagine? I know it's still too early.
We try not to think about it too much.
We try not to think about it.
I think for investors, of course, it's no secret that's the goal, right? When Kavu is deploying capital, I think they feel they see a clear vision to an outcome, an amazing outcome, like what they'd seen with Poppy. I think from the founder perspective, it's a little bit different. We have to look directly ahead and not 10 steps ahead at all times, right? It can be distracting to think about, the parachute at the end, but that's not, we're passionate about innovation, about, I love nothing more than being in the store and talking to the grocery teams and talking to the consumers and being able to bring excitement to a category that has had none of it for so long. We try not to think about it.
Okay.
So I think the best answer is I don't totally know. I think there's plenty involved that want an incredible outcome, and our team does too, but we're not focused on that being the goal quite yet.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that you talk to consumers a lot. One of the things that has come up a lot in this, space and, with our generation is we care a lot about sustainability. So how has that, been a factor for Sauz?
Yeah. I think it's funny, even on, we on the supply chain, we care a lot about sustainability, of course. I mean, we use glass and everything is recyclable in our packaging, both at the wholesale level and at the retail level. But I think where we almost make more of an impact is on the marketing end. We really push for consumers to use emptied product in ways that maybe they never would think to. We see a lot of UGC content of flowers being held in a jar of hot honey marinara, and jars themselves being reused in ways that you might not otherwise think to if it was some sort of traditional tomato sauce that isn't a beautiful thing to look at in your living room, right? But across the board, I mean, we really do push on packaging primarily because we see a lot of, I see it firsthand when I walk the floors of manufacturing facilities and distributors. I think there's been a big push across the entire value chain to be as sustainable as possible, right?
And I have to ask, just because it's such a hot industry right now, have you been using AI at all at Sauz, whether that's on the marketing end or on the back end for your business? Any sort of integrations with that?
You know, we're just onboarding a new ERP system, which is like resource planning across the entire business, really, from filling POs to booking freight, that is driven by proprietary AI. So I can't speak on it too much quite yet because I haven't had enough time to be able to say if it's fundamentally changed the way we do business. But I think also on the marketing end, it's funny when it feels like now, anytime we're in a meeting as a marketing team and we hit a wall or a roadblock in thinking about how to ideate, we go to GPT, right? And I think whether it gives us the answers or not, it allows us maybe to think in ways that we otherwise wouldn't be.
Okay.
And so we do. I mean, I think it's been interesting to see the evolution of the team. In when we feel like we're stuck, we do go to GPT sometimes to figure out if there's a solution that maybe we haven't thought of quite yet.
I love that.
So.
Yeah, that's a good practical use.
Yeah.
I almost forgot the most important question.
Uh-oh.
Who's cooking the sauce?
Oh, I know. It's not me and my co-founder anymore. I will say we had committed to this. It was like a big event at a club in LA, and they wanted 100 jars of sauce. And we didn't produce in time because all the jars that I told you were destroyed, we had to throw out. And so we actually did one time hot fill 100 jars of steam capped product in the kitchen, and it was the most difficult thing we've ever done in our lives. So we grew a certain level of respect for the manufacturers on the floor. But we cook in most of our product is cooked in the U.S. A lot of it is also cooked in Italy and Sicily. So
nice.
Yeah, it's it's definitely authentic in that way, but it's all over. I mean, up in the Northeast and then out in Sicily.
Okay. My last question for you, as a startup that's successfully broken into retailers and has landed shelf space, what is your advice to other young founders who are trying to land that shelf space?
Yeah. I think the key really is innovating in a way that it offers you an opportunity to communicate more value to the consumer, right? For us, we're an innovation business, but innovation is what really gives us the opportunity to provide more perceived value to the shopper, right? The shopper looks at a regular marinara versus a hot honey marinara on shelf, and I think there is this level of value created by virtue of flavor innovation in our product. And that's really the key to unlocking for us distribution. I mean, it's the opportunity to communicate to the retailer that we can drive incrementality. We can be more incremental than anybody else in this category ever has been. We can bring new dollars to the set. We're not going to take we're not just going to cannibalize existing dollars in the category. We're going to bring new dollars in, and ideally it's a consumer that otherwise wouldn't be shopping the category. Generally, it's Gen Z, millennial, majority female that we're engaging digitally and we're activating to bring into stores. So I think it's about really building product that is just innovative enough to communicate outsized value and pairing it with brand that truly does resonate with a new consumer that you can bring incrementally to store.
But how do you communicate that? Like, how do you get your foot in the door? Is it cold emailing?
Yeah.
Is it going to the store, just talking to someone?
Yeah.
What does that look like? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, in the beginning, it was like knocking on doors effectively, right? It was going to Air One and figuring out who we had to talk to. Today, we have a sales team, of course, and so it's much different today. And there's traditional reset periods and submissions. But in the beginning, just like the first business we ran, every dime of revenue we generated in drop shipping this sanitizer product was via cold email, right? We would draft emails all day and we'd send them out in the morning. And next thing you knew, we had a $700,000 business in 3 months. And so in food, it's a little bit different. I think the barriers to entry in retail are much higher. Outside of the independents, the 1, 2, 3 store mom and pop shops that you can walk into and you can say, I'll give you a case of product. Let's see how it sells.
Yeah.
And if it sells well, you'll buy some more. But it's, you kind of, there's stepping stones to the point where, you'll have retailers coming to you. Target approached us in the beginning, right? We did not expect to gain Target distribution when we did. But I think if you can communicate this vision of being able to grow a category in an outsized way, any retailer is going to resonate with that, right?
I love that.
So
Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to go try some hot honey marinara.
you got a lifetime supply. I'm happy to be here. Thank you. Appreciate it.